Hey, y'all. I'm Bud Elliott, and this is Cover 3 College Football Summer School. We've done our research on the teams, and now we're bringing on the top team experts from the 24/7 Sports Network to help us fill in the blanks. Please follow us on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. That's Cover 3 Podcast. And leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. All right. Class is in session. Hey, guys. I'm Bud Elliott, and this is the Cover 3 Podcast Summer School Edition. And today we're going to talk a little Duke Blue Devils, and to help me do that, I'm going to bring on my friend Adam Rowe from the Devil's Den, our 24/7 Sports Duke Blue Devils affiliate. What's going on, Adam?
Hey, Bud. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Just grinding through these summer schools. Feel like I'm learning a whole lot about teams, and I know there's a lot of new stuff to learn about Duke this year off a 3-9 season last year and a coaching change after a great run for David Cutcliffe there. Just, all great runs must come to an end at some point, I guess. 113th in the Vegas Power Ratings, so definitely a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, there's a lot of change going on in Durham. Obviously, David Cutcliffe had built out not just the team, not just the roster every year, but a program. He had resurrected Duke football from the depths of where they were before he took over in 2008. I think the year before, even that summer, Duke, the university, had won a court case with Louisville, who was suing them for backing out of a contract with them, because Duke's argument in court, the legal status, was that Duke football was so bad that Louisville could find any opponent in the country to replace them and not suffer any downgrade in performance, and they won.
That's pretty amazing. I don't know if our younger viewers and listeners remember this, but I remember that Florida State used to buy out the road trip to Duke, and Duke, instead of playing a conference home game against the Noles, would take the check and go play in like Jacksonville or Orlando or Tampa or one of those cities where FSU wanted to go hit up one of its alumni bases in the state. It's something you wouldn't really see in any conference anymore, but it really speaks to just how good of a job that the program has done overall, and specifically Cutcliffe, of changing things around.
Yeah, and Cutcliffe even said when he took the job, that it was going to be a lot easier for him to get them from bad to good than it was to get them from good to great. And that's, the challenge with any kind of mediocre or mid-level Power 5 team or some of the upper echelons of those Power 6 teams, to just take that next leap and go from, where Duke was competing for ACC championships in 2013. I mean, I think we both were at that game in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium when Duke was just outclassed on the football field by Florida State in that game. But they won the Coastal Division. I mean, that is an accomplishment that I think should not be looked at lightly and should give hope to Elko and the people that are taking over this football program that it's possible to do that again.
Yeah, honestly, that was a little bit of bad luck timing-wise for Duke, that they finally break through and win the Coastal, and then they go play a team where I think 21 out of 22 starters got drafted, which is just you really couldn't have worse luck opponent draw-wise. There are other years in which they could have beat some of those late 2000s Boston College teams for sure.
Absolutely. That Florida State team, I remember when they took the field, it was just it was like a different level of football. The talent, the athleticism, the size of the players, and that's something that Elko hasn't been here long. He took over the program in mid-December, but they've really focused on building up the strength and the power of the guys that are on the roster now.
For sure. So let's go ahead and start on offense here. I'm not really familiar with the new offensive scheme Duke's going to run. If you don't mind us giving us a little bit of rundown of that in terms of what they're trying to run, maybe tempo, run pass preference, stuff like that.
Yeah, they brought in Elko brought in Kevin Johns from the offensive coordinator from Memphis. He's known for kind of trying to enforce his style of play on the opponent. Everything that Johns has said in the offseason and in spring ball has been that they're going to try to play up tempo. Every offensive coordinator is going to say that in spring camp, but I think what John sees with the roster and maybe even before he saw that is that when you have a talent disadvantage, if you can put the defense on their heels and keep them guessing. That's where you can kind of even things out. I know Duke has two quarterbacks that they really feel comfortable with. Riley Leonard is a redshirt sophomore. He's a big guy, 6'4", can really throw the ball and can really move. He's really athletic, kind of like I mean, he's not. I don't think he's on the level, kind of like game management wise, as Daniel Jones was when he was at Duke. But he's got everything that you should look for in a modern day kind of college quarterback. And then Jordan Moore is a really, really athletic guy that can also throw the ball, but like his first instinct is when they're starting to when the pocket starts to collapse around him, he's going to take off, and that guy can move. I think they're going to play two quarterbacks at the same time. I think Cutcliffe really liked to play spread offense, which worked well when the college game was catching up to the NFL game, or vice versa. I mean, there was some back and forth there. It really worked well when defenses were kind of on their heels and not knowing how to defend a spread as well. Once they got to know that, the defenses in college got to know that, I think he didn't adapt well enough. So you'll probably see something similar, three wide, maybe two guys in the backfield, but mostly one. I think Cutcliffe relied a little bit more on the tight ends. He had two tight ends usually on the line, or one on the line and one in the backfield. I think you're going to probably see more skill position guys, running backs and wide receivers in that offense and try to get big hitters in.
Let me ask you about the skill positions then, because Jake Bobo is gone, and so is Mateo Durant. And I feel like if you're not a Duke fan, you're just a college football fan or an ACC fan, those would kind of be the two names that you would recognize from last year's Duke roster. And now they're gone. What do you think the skill positions are going to look like this year?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Durant was really, I think, really underrated, and really, I don't think a lot of casual football fans really know his skill level. I think he's gonna make a roster in the NFL. So at running back, they've got a guy named Jalen Coleman who really impressed as a freshman, but tore his ACL. He sat out the last year and a half, and then another guy named Jordan Waters who came in as a true athlete. I mean, he was there were fights, not like fights, but there was push
Sure.
and pull between the defensive backs coach and the wide receivers coach on who was actually going to get him. He's just like that kind of athletic guy, and he filled in for Durant when he was out a little bit last year. He's athletic. He can pound inside and out. And then at the wide receiver position, I think you're going to see a lot of a guy named Eli Pinkole, who has all the attitude and energy that you want to see from a college wide receiver. And maybe he just needed a little bit of coaching to dial in, what it means to run a route in college, what it means to, get separation. I think a lot of Duke's offense last year and the year before really suffered on getting separation for the wide receivers. So I think you're going to see they brought in a guy named Zon Burden from Maryland, who's a really well respected wide receivers coach, and I think he's really coached up those guys. So you're going to see Eli Pinkole, Daryl Harding Jr., Jalen Calhoun is a really excellent slot receiver. He's started every game since he got to Duke. So I think those three are going to be like your big target wide receivers.
I saw they took Chance Little from Colorado and then Andre Harris Jr. from Arkansas State. What's your kind of take on the offensive line this year?
Work in progress. I mean, they've got some guys that are really impressive. I think they're just trying to figure out where those guys fit. Graham Barton is I think a junior now. He's filled in at center. He played tackle last year. I think you'll see him settle in at guard this year. Jacob Monk has played both at tackle and guard, so you're going to see him kind of slide around a little bit. And then they've got a kid, Brian Foley, that I think is gonna be a competitor at center. I think, like you said, I mean, they're bringing in guys from the transfer portal, and they're mostly focused on that offensive line, and I think there's a reason for that. I think they're looking for answers there, and that's going to be a big place that they're going to look for more help on the recruiting trail next year.
What Does Duke have the same issue that Stanford does? We just shot the Stanford edition of summer school a couple days ago. Do they have the same issue that Stanford does as far as the difficulty of getting transfers in due to the academics?
It's not as easy as it is in other places.
Sure.
And these days, they're suffering a deficit of NIL collectives too. I mean, there's not a lot of Duke alumni that are throwing up $40,000 to pay for a guy to come transfer to play Duke football. I think they have to be selected, but the Duke administration is more lenient, I think, with the football program than they are with the basketball program, just because of sheer numbers. I know that the Duke football academic support staff has a lot of people there to make sure that those guys keep their grades up. I mean, nobody's failed out of the school or anything like that. So they have to be careful with it. But I think they do the right thing. And it's a smaller pool of players, but there are guys out there that can find success academically at Duke.
For sure.
One of the things that I think is fun, a little bit on the radar, is this last offseason, Duke's endowment, the university endowment, actually hit big on like 3 private companies that they invested in that went public. And their endowment went up by like 60% or something like that. It's in up close to like the 10th highest endowment fund in the nation now. And all of the different pieces of the university at the recent board of trustees meetings lobbied the board of trustees for a little piece of that pie. Just so happened that was right when Nina King was looking to replace David Cutcliffe. Duke's not going to announce what they're paying Elko, but it's over $4 million for his salary. But they also have tripled the support staff. So you see like recruiting department, marketing department, graphics, academic support, like everything you could possibly imagine. They basically have like either doubled or tripled what they were investing before. But along with that, they've also have increased the assistant coaching salaries, which you see usually they'll take somebody from like a very low level school as an assistant as a lateral move. Well, they've hired some FCS head coaches as assistant coaches. Their OL coach, Adam Cushing, was a head coach at the FCS level last year. They hired Zon Borden away from Maryland, a lateral move. Like those are big moves for a football program like Duke. So from what I understand, their assistant coaching pool is in the top third of the ACC now, where it was dead last year.
That is that's significant change. May not pay huge dividends year one, but certainly going forward, that's a pretty big deal.
Totally.
So they were opponent adjusted last year. I think they were 98th offensively. You see significant improvement there, just a little bit, hold and serve.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Gunnar Holmberg was the quarterback there. He was a guy who had a lot of high expectations coming into the year. I think he suffered some injuries early in his career and maybe didn't develop physically like they expected him to. And then obviously the year before they had Chase Price to transfer in from Clemson, and from what I understand, there just wasn't a fit. He came in right in the middle of the coronavirus, didn't really get a chance to gel with his teammates. They were sequestered in the hotel for his first month of being. I mean, it was just it was a total.
Duke took that stuff seriously too. I'm pretty sure. Some of these schools, I think, had a little more secret practices than others did. I'm guessing Duke had very little.
None. Yeah, I mean, they were literally in their rooms until they tested negative for COVID. And that was back in the day when it took 2 weeks to get a test back. You talk to some people at Duke and they think they took it a little bit too seriously until they didn't, with the whole basketball season getting canceled and the tournament. But yeah, it was a different atmosphere at Duke for sure. Granted, they were staying in a very exquisite resort across the street from the campus, so it wasn't all horrible. But yeah, I think it really hindered their football program, especially at the state where it was with Cutcliffe. It was a developmental program. Can't
For
develop
sure.
the guys in the offseason, you're going to suffer that.
Let's switch over to the defense here quickly. Last year, 118th in defense. Probably the worst Power 5 defense out there. There's a couple that may argue with you, but certainly one of the worst Power 5 defenses out there. Defensive line, they lose Smith, they lose Fry. I feel like they should be okay. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to take too big of a step back. I think Fry was undersized. He was just like the guy that they needed to provide that upper level leadership. Dwayne Carter is just the guy on that defensive line. He's like the captain of the defense. He's leading. I think he's like like vice president. I mean, he does like a little bit of everything. He's got like that personality that you need from a leader. Yeah, I think that's something they're struggling with to find. I think they're looking at to find a few guys, but yeah, I mean Dwayne Carter. They're looking at R.J. Oben as a really promising guy that they have a lot of faith in. They get Jamion Franklin back, who's a redshirt senior. I think he's a 6-year guy. He was at Notre Dame at one point. And then you're looking at probably like Aeneas Peebles and Caleb Oppen are going to be those next level guys that are going to fill in there. They've got depth. They just need to develop it.
For sure. I assume linebacker will be just fine. So let's move here to the secondary. And Adam, I got to say, this is a little bit scary. So first of all, they had 9 guys play 300 plus snaps last year in the secondary, which suggests to me they had some injury issues. But 7 of those 9 are gone. And I've done upwards of 40 of these preview episodes now, and I really don't think I've seen anybody lose 7 of their 9 guys who played 300 snaps in the secondary. That's kind of unheard of, at least of the ones I've done so far. What is this as dire as it looks on my spreadsheet?
It's going to be tough. I think that's going to be another place. I think they're looking at probably another 5 guys in the portal. So I think you probably see 1 more offensive lineman, maybe a couple more defensive linemen, and 1 or 2 more defensive backs. They've got a guy named Darius Joyner that they just recently brought in for an official visit. He was a FCS first team All-American. I could see him jumping in and starting right away. The guy that's back now with the most experience on the team, which again, as you said, is a little bit scary, is probably Tony Davis, who's a redshirt junior, and he's barely played at all. But I think you're going to see him starting next year. It's slim pickings, to be honest with you. Chandler Rivers is a freshman guy. He was an early enrollee that they're really excited about. He's from Beaumont, Texas. Jalen Stinson is a shorter defensive back, but he's really quick. From Opelika, Alabama. I mean, I think you're gonna see a rotating cast of characters back there.
At least the schedule starts out friendly with respect to opponent passers. I mean, I'm not obviously at some point you got to play some of the better quarterbacks in the ACC, and they're on the schedule. But if you look at the start of this thing, at least, I mean, Temple last year had one of the worst passing offenses I've ever seen. Northwestern, probably the worst at passing in the Power 5. North Carolina A&T and Kansas. So like, I don't know. Duke will start 4-0. They could start 2-2 or 3-1, 1-3. But at least if you're breaking in a ridiculously new secondary, I feel like you could not ask for a better September to do it against, realistically.
Yeah, you could do worse. And again, you've got Mike Elko coming in. I mean, he's seen it all on the defensive side. He's coached. He was a defensive coordinator at Wake Forest when they were really rebuilding that program when he came in. I mean, they did not have a whole lot of talent there at all. And I thought what he did with that squad, he really overachieved. And then obviously he jumped to Notre Dame, Texas A&M. That's a different level of football, different level of player, different level of athlete. But I think he can bring some of that over to this team, to this roster, and hopefully motivate those guys. Duke has always played a 4-2-5, but I'd be interested. It'd be interesting to see if they kind of switch that scheme up this year.
For sure. Find ways to put that together.
Yeah, shake it up a little bit, and have less of a dime look at all and all that base dime. I mean, you need five really solid defensive backs to be able to play that. And what did you say they have? I counted them up.
So they had 9 guys who played 300 snaps last year in the secondary, and 7 are gone.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they shake that up a little bit.
That might not be a bad thing to shake up.
Right. Rob Smith was at Rutgers, I think, last year.
Shiano guy.
Shiano guy. I know Elko is really fond of him. It's going to be interesting. I know last year I did one of these, and I think the most exciting thing you're looking for to Duke football was to see how many turnovers they would have. And, like, this year, it's like, it's just an open book. Like, you got nothing to lose, right?
No doubt about
it. I'm excited to see them compete. As you said, those 4 non-conference games, none of them are going to be too exciting. I don't think either way. Duke Kansas isn't really setting off any DVR alerts on anybody's TV. But yeah,
if you're watching that, they should just have a scroll like, "Do you have a gambling issue?" Like that's just scroll across the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh.
It'll be fun to watch for sure.
No doubt about it, man. Adam Rowe, make sure you check out everything there at Devil's Den, and I really appreciate the time, man. We'll have to have you back on for fall preview.
Sounds good. Thanks, bud.
All right, that's the bell. Cover 3 College Football Summer School is over for today, but don't worry. We'll be back soon with even more episodes filling you in on the top teams in college football. Please give us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast, and we'll see y'all soon.